I'm Donnie Piercy, host of the Partial Credit Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hey there, Burned In Teachers, and welcome to episode 93 of the Burned In Teacher podcast. Today, in the Clarity Series Part 2, we're going to talk about creating rebuttals for those nasty lies that you're telling yourself. You ready? Let's dive in. Welcome to the Burned In Teacher podcast. I'm Amber Harper, and the educators on this podcast are brave enough to share their stories of burnout with the world. On BIT, we get real, we get honest, and we take action. Action against the burnout with stories from burned out teachers, advice from experts, and actionable steps you can take today to beat the burnout and become a happier, more fulfilled human being. Let's get started. Hello there. How you doing? How was your holiday? No matter how you celebrated this year, I know it's in light of a very strange holiday season. I hope that it was safe and warm, and somehow you got to connect with family and friends and loved ones that mean so much to you. I hope that you also have had some time to rest and relax and reflect and maybe even do your homework that I gave you last week in part 1 of the Clarity series. Now, if you're brand new to the Burned In Teacher podcast, hello, I'm Amber Harper. I am your host, and this is one part burnout and all other parts action, inspiration, and support for teachers dealing with burnout. And my job as your teacher burnout coach is to empower you to believe that you deserve and can achieve a happier and more fulfilled career in life with my 8-step burned in process. Now, if you haven't already started the process, you can start it right now by pausing and going to burnedinteacher.com/burnout quiz and taking my free 6-question, 3-minute or less quiz to identify what type of teacher burnout you are dealing with. Now, this episode and the rest of the episodes of the Clarity series, this 3-part series leading into 2021, are for all burnout types and all stages, because no matter what burnout type we're dealing with or what stage we are in, we can all face some serious hardship that really hinders our ability to focus and to be clear about what we want for ourselves in the future. Because when we are so overwhelmed and so chronically stressed by everything that's happening, we don't focus on our future. We focus on that quote unquote survival mode. And that is what I hear so many teachers talking about. I'm just surviving. I'm just surviving until the weekend. I'm just surviving until winter break. I'm just surviving until retirement in 15 years. And that's certainly no way to live a life. Now, as I told you last week, I am your coach, so I'm not coming from a place of judgment. I don't know you specifically. I don't know your specific story or season of life or teaching. All I'm here to do as a coach is to help to guide you through some strategies to think about things differently so that you can do things differently and try different things so that, as in the story I told last week, we are not flies who are consistently banging ourselves and bashing ourselves against this window, against this glass to try to get outside when there's a door wide open a couple of feet away. And that door does not have to represent the door out of education. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it could be that door out of overwhelm and frustration and isolation and loneliness and that scattered feeling that I talked about last week. So if you're listening to this and you're like, what the heck is she talking about last week? Go back to last week's episode, part 1 of the Clarity series, Are You Coachable? I want you to listen to that first because that's really kind of the layout of the foundation, rather, of what you need to be thinking about as you move into 2021, which is just coming in a couple of days, right? So that you can be clear about who you are and what you're saying to yourself on a daily basis. So we're going to dive into part 2, and this is going to be kind of quick, but I'm going to need you to follow me here, okay? Because we're not going to stop by just paying attention to the nasty things that we say to ourselves. We're actually going to use those nasty statements that I did ask you to take note of, and if you're listening to this and you didn't listen to that episode, go back and listen to it, or just go ahead and pause this recording and write down some things that you know you've repeated to yourself or that you've said to yourself that are negative, that are nasty, all right? So in this video series that I actually led live in the Burn and Teacher podcast Facebook community, I was very vulnerable and shared some nasty stories and statements that I said to myself that day before whenever I led this part 2 of this series. And so some things that people said to themselves, and myself included, are, "You are so stupid," or "Nobody cares. Why would anybody pay attention to you? There's too much to do. I can't handle this," or "Enter your statement here," right? So there are a plethora of nasty things that we're saying to ourselves, and some of us have just accepted those things as the truth because we continually repeat those things to ourselves over and over and over again every single day. And that's actually part of our human makeup, is that we repeat 95% of the thoughts that we thought the day before on that day, and the next day we'll do it again. The problem with that is that 80% of them are negative, and if we don't identify that as something that we are doing, we can't change it. So that's why I said last week, I really want you to think about being coachable and really think deeply and do this work, because it will truly, over time, you can train your brain, and this is what we're going to do today, to form rebuttals whenever you start to say nasty things to yourself. You can actually say, nope, we don't do that anymore. We don't go there anymore. We don't talk like that anymore. I can imagine, talking to one of my students, "We don't say that here." And these are the things that we can say to ourselves in our own heads when we find ourselves going into that negative, victimized state. Okay? So what we're going to do today is I want you to pull out that list or open up your phone and look at those notes that you took over the last few days of the things that you're saying to yourself, okay? So last week we talked about clarity and how our choices, when we're panicked, stressed, overwhelmed, how those can affect other choices, right? And how if we're using the words exhausted, lonely, unappreciated, that's what we will continue to say and feel, and it will affect our reality, because our choices are beliefs and our beliefs are choices. So we have to change these choices to talk to ourselves in these ways. I also shared this story of the fly that's bashing itself against the window, as I've already mentioned, and how, as stressed out teachers, that's kind of how we are. We don't see any other way. So I want to ask you, what do you think that fly is saying to itself over and over and over again? What do you think is going through its little fly head? All right. I can imagine that it's saying things like, "Stop being so weak. Just fly harder. There's no other way. Keep going. I can see it. It's right there. What's wrong with me?" Or, "Ouch, why is this so hard? This should be so easy." I mean, we're not flies, but I know that I have said things to myself like that. Like, "Why does this have to be so hard?" Or, "Why am I making this so hard? Gosh, you're such a moron." We say things like that to ourselves. And when we don't have a rebuttal, it becomes our truth. Okay, now these are some simple truths that I shared last week, but I want to make sure that I reiterate them because they are for sure the truth. Okay, and this is where I'm going to be your coach. I might make you kind of go ouch here, because number one, you created the sense of busy or being overwhelmed, and only you can change it. Nobody else can change it. You have some choices you can make to change that feeling. Okay. Number two, there is no miracle drug or miracle solution. It's only a choice of how you're going to spend your next action and how you're going to spend your next minute. What are you going to do? Okay. Because, I talk to a lot of teachers that say, "I don't have time." In fact, when I pitched this idea to the Facebook community about this 8-week program that I've got going on right now, you can sign up, the Burn and Teacher Tribe Mastermind. Somebody said, "I ain't got no time for that." Okay. But this was on Facebook, mind you. Okay, so I'm not, again, no judgments. I'm just getting you to think deeply here. I challenge you to get on your phone and look at your time app, your screen time app. Okay, how many hours were you online yesterday? And what were you on? Were you on Instagram, Pinterest? What were you doing? Because that's time. That's no less time than if you're cooking dinner for your family. It's still taking minutes off of your day, right? So I want you to think about that. How are you going to spend your next minute? And I mean, you listening to this right now proves to me that you're searching for something different. You're searching for more clarity. And I'm here for it, okay? Number three, your sense of being overwhelmed is contagious is as your sense of calm is contagious as well. So whether you choose to be overwhelmed or calm, both of those are contagious. All right. Now, I know we talk about contagion all the time right now. Overwhelm and calm are contagious as well. Okay. So last week I asked you, and if you dove into the Burned In Teacher podcast Facebook community and maybe watched these series that I led live in the podcast community the week of December 14th, I asked you to think about the things that you said that were nasty to yourselves, okay? So these things that we say to ourselves over and over and over again are due to the chronic stress that we're under, okay, with COVID and everything else going on, in addition to our normal teaching responsibilities. But that chronic stress creates smoke, which means you can't see or breathe. You certainly can't see well, and that causes burnout. And then in addition to that, if you're telling yourself stories about what a good teacher does and does not do, or that we're superheroes, or that I have to have this Bitmoji classroom, or my virtual classroom has to look like this, or my physical classroom has to look like this, or there's not enough, and God, I'm so stupid, I can't figure out this technology, and what if this and what if that, those things that we're saying to ourselves, I talk about crabs in our lives that tear us down and keep us where we are when we're trying to climb out of that bucket of misery. A lot of times the crabs that are the worst in our lives are the ones that are in our head. And we have to have a way to fight against those nasty crabs and those nasty things that we're saying to ourselves. So you have a way of doing this. And the way that we're going to do this is we're going to name these nasty things that we're saying to ourselves. Okay, this negative, nasty self-talk. Now, I already have the Agents of Same and the Agents of Change. You can download them for free, and I actually have them as posters. And a lot of Burned In teachers, they hang these posters in their home office or their school or their teacher's lounge or their classrooms. So I already have a couple of Agents of Same, and I won't tell you, all of them, but probably the most popular ones are Perfection Patty and Overwhelm Olivia. So Perfection Patty says, if this isn't perfect, it isn't good enough to use or do. So as you're looking at Pinterest or Instagram, that might be what you're saying. And that creates those feelings of doubt and uncertainty. Well, the Agent of Change for that for Patty is try it out, Trevor. I'm brave enough to try new things, make mistakes, and learn from them. So that creates that feeling of confidence and inspiration. So I have already kind of, trying to put into your mind how you can create these rebuttals, because that's what those Agents of Change are. But you can call your Agents of Change whatever you want. So these are those rebuttals for when you say, God, you're so stupid. Why do you keep making that same mistake? You can say to yourself, that's crap. That's not true. That's a lie. That's BS. And you don't have to say BS, especially if your kids aren't around, right? But you can say, that's a lie. That's my burnout talking. Or that's, I said on the Facebook Live, I said, maybe I could just switch my letters of my name around and say Rebma instead of Amber. That's my anxiety. That's my stress. That's my burnout talking. That's not true, because I'm not stupid. I have a master's degree in education. Or name the reasons that you are not dumb. Okay. Or if, gosh, this is impossible, I'm so overwhelmed. Okay. This is where you can have a rebuttal that says, overwhelm is a feeling that I choose to feel. All right. And this isn't too much. I can do this, but there must be a simpler way. And I am smart enough to figure it out. And then that will lead to a more proactive, activated, actionable self-talk. Okay. So that's what I want you to do this week for Clarity Series Part 2. I want you to name your burnout talk. All right. And I want you to post about it. I want to see what you're going to name your burnout talk. You could just call it burnout talking, or burnout talk. And then I want you to come up with at least 2 or 3 rebuttals. That's a lie because, this is not true because, or that's BS because. All right. We have those 80%, the 80% of our talk that's negative, we have to fight back. Because if we don't fight back, we're going to continue to lose our focus. Instead of focusing on the important things that bring us joy or happiness or are taking us closer to our goals in the future, we cannot spend that time believing the crap that is going around in our head. It's going to exhaust you. It's going to make you like that fly that's continuing to fly against that window. You are better than that, and you matter, and your time matters, and what you think and say and do matters. Okay? So like I said last week, this is part 2 of the Clarity series. I actually led these series live in the Burn In Teacher Podcast Facebook community. They are still in there. I've pinned them to the top so you can watch them one after another. You can binge watch them if you will. They're pretty short. They're around 30 minutes each. And I've shortened them here because there aren't comments. I'm not, we're not having a conversation with people live. But what I am going to tell you too is that if you want to take your clarity to the next level, you can go to burninteacher.com/masterclass. I led a free live masterclass that I did record. You can watch the replay of it right now today. You can go register and it's right there for you. It's already been recorded. So that will help to take your clarity to the next level so you know what you want and who you want to be and how you can get there. Okay? Because we can't grow or move through our burnout if we have no idea why we're fighting against it in the first place and what we would do with that time and that energy if we had it. One more thing before we go. Right now, the Burned In Teacher Tribe Mastermind cart is open and you can join today. Now, we are going to have our kickoff party around January 17th. And that is going to kick off our 8 weeks of guided coaching through the Burned In Teacher University. Now don't roll your eyes, all right? I really want you to go check it out first before you make any judgments because a lot of teachers are signing up. They're very excited, and they're excited about being guided. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but here we go. So if you go to burninteacher.com/mastermind, you'll see that the Burned In Teacher Tribe, which used to be exclusively a membership, is now a 1 or 3 payment option so that you can join and have forever access to this cohort that starts in January, which is that 8 weeks of guided instruction through the Burn In process. But after that 8 weeks is over, you can access all of the material anytime you want, and you can join future cohorts. So there's going to be another one in the spring, but I don't want that to be an excuse for you to wait, because if you're struggling with burnout, you've got to get in there now so you can get the support that you need. And I'm telling you, our community is a bunch of first-class educators. I'm telling you, I have it on the page that you'll land on if you go to burninteacher.com/mastermind. You are going to see the amazing support that these educators offer each other, both when they're celebrating and when they're struggling. And I don't know about you, but if you're on a path to becoming burned in, it's hard to talk about how well things are going and the things that you're discovering about yourself when other people are parking themselves in misery. So we'd love to see you there. We'd love you to join us. Now, today, I want you to name that nasty burnout talk. I want you to come up with some rebuttals, and I want you to take a deep breath because you just took another step to becoming a burn-in teacher. See you next week. If you enjoyed today's podcast episode, you can head over to burnedinteacher.com where you can access the entire vault of Burned In Teacher podcast episodes and more information about ways I want to help you go from burned out teacher to burned in human. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would be so grateful if you would head over to iTunes and leave a review and a rating about the Burned In Teacher podcast. Until next time, take a deep breath because you just took another step to becoming a burned in teacher. Burn on.